So how many here are either in an OpenSFS or EOFS member organization? Could you raise your hand? Okay. So we've got a few more of you to convince. I'll spend a little bit of time doing that today. So what is OpenSFS? OpenSFS is a community resource for all of you. Our primary goal is to drive the future of open source file systems. In particular, we are focusing on the Lustre file system today and in the future. But what was the prologue? Why did we actually form? Hugo alluded to much of this in his talk, so I'll only briefly cover it. But in 2010, the community moved to support Lustre on its own. After some events in the ecosystem, two companies, Zyratex and Wham Cloud, hired a number of Lustre developers and began offering support for the Lustre system. And then Wham Cloud shortly thereafter stood up to support the Lustre tree. During this time, 3 different community organizations formed to offer venues of collaboration and support for end users. In 2011, after LUG 2011, we consolidated and aligned under 2 primary organizations, OpenSFS and EOFS. This was an important moment. It allowed us to really focus on our collaborative models and make sure that we could ensure Lustre was successful in the future. We then funded a 2-year development contract with Wham Cloud. And then after Wham Cloud took the initiative of creating the Lustre 2.1 community release, we began funding the support of ongoing future releases. So really what a difference a year makes, right? Transitioning from LUG 2011 to where we are today, OpenSFS in collaboration with EOFS has established itself as the primary venue for collaborative Lustre maintenance and development. And I'll go through some proof points to that in my talk. As a result, we see the success today. Over 215 attendees here at LUG, 70 different organizations. I believe last year we had just over 160 attendees and just over 60 different organizations represented. So I'm more impressed with actually that second number, 10 new organizations coming to this LUG. That's just phenomenal. And participants from every corner of the world. So what is OpenSFS? Shortly, we're a vendor-neutral, member-supported nonprofit organization. Similar to EOFS, we operate on behalf of our members, for the benefit of our members and the entire community, to ensure that open source parallel file systems are available for the high-performance computing sector. Our mission is to aggregate the community resources and be the center of collaborative activities around these technologies, with the end goal of the continued evolution of a robust open source file system for the entire HPC community. This is probably a bit of an eye chart, but I'd encourage you to take a look at the slides. This is really how we view ourselves and how we've structured ourselves for operation. Initially, we started by just being an organization to build confidence in Lustre, basically a safety net and defending against a single point of failure within the ecosystem. This is still a critical function today. We organize key stakeholders within the community to ensure that the open source Lustre file system is vibrant and moves forward into the future. We facilitate a stable release. We do this through funding and we do this through collaborative activities with the entire development community. And we organize community testing and actually provide dedicated platforms for testing the Lustre file system to ensure it's robust, performant, scalable, and works out of the box. Well, as much as possible works out of the box. We also ensure open source development and an open development model so that multiple communities, multiple organizations can contribute to the Lustre file system in a transparent and open environment. And we do this by funding the core tree maintenance of the Lustre file system and coordinating the community through the Community Development Working Group. And we ensure the continued evolution of the file system. I alluded to this earlier through direct funding of roadmap features, defining the roadmap and then executing on the roadmap by funding developers to develop those features that we all need. And we provide a community resource for awareness, marketing, making sure folks are aware that Lustre has a bright future, that we're moving forward on this roadmap, and really communicating this to the community through our strong partnerships with EOFS and, in the future, international chapters of OpenSFS. So who are we? Here's a snapshot of our current members. Cray, Oak Ridge, Lawrence Livermore, Data Direct Networks, Zyratex, Indiana University, Wham Cloud, Sandia National Laboratories, TerraScala, NetApp, RAID Incorporated, SGI, NASA, TAC, and pending members, Intel, and EMC. Hopefully I won't get in trouble for including those, but you'll see that we are growing rapidly, and we have some very key organizations stepping up to the plate and supporting our organization. We're based on a community working group model. Anybody's welcome to participate in these community working groups, whether you're a member or not. The technical working group gathers requirements from the entire community, not just from our members, but we broadly canvass everybody to see what are the core features that we need within Lustre. We prioritize that and then propose and manage development projects to execute those requirements, development of the features to meet those requirements. We also have a community development working group where we manage Lustre releases and coordinate the release roadmap with those new features that are developed within the technical working group. Recently, the benchmarking working group was stood up to investigate HPC user workloads and then to distill these into a set of benchmarks that are easy to run, well understood, well documented, and available as open source benchmarks for the entire community so that folks can easily evaluate both system performance and scalability of their Lustre platform. The WAN working group is currently coordinating use cases and feature development for Lustre over the wide area. John Carrier and David Dillow are leading up the technical working group. The community development working group is Pam Hamilton and Ryan Weiss. Benchmarking working group is Richard Vanderbilt and Sarp Oral. And then the WAN working group is led up by Stephen Sims. But they're just the ones helping herd the cats. The real people doing the work are the members of those working groups. So OpenSFS ensures open source file systems. With OpenSFS, we prevent that single point of failure for the entire community. We understand and consolidate community issues, efforts, projects, and future direction. The outcome is stabilization, support, and maturation of Lustre as open source, new technology development, shared support and development, community engagement, and promoting awareness and expanding the technical knowledge base. And this is a key component of our future mission, of what we want to focus on, including subject matter experts, developing the next generation of developers in open source parallel file systems. We know that the number of developers in the community is relatively small. It takes many years to develop some of the expertise within this community, and this is an area where we want to drive the next generation of developers so that we can carry forward the Lustre file system, and in the future, other open source file systems. So there's really three components for this continued maturation of the open source file system. Support and maintenance of Lustre, development programs to meet future requirements, and community support related activities. But there's real costs to each of these, and I'll be going into costs now. What are some of the costs? Well, annual cost of support and maintenance of Lustre. This is to ensure that we have regular releases for new features and maintenance. This is gatekeeping, release testing, release management, bug fixing, admin support, documentation, dedicated equipment for testing to make sure your Lustre is stable. This is without doing any new actual feature development, just to ensure that those features land, are rolled up in a release, bugs are fixed, and that you get that next point release. The cost of this, approximately $3 million per year. Currently, OpenSFS is funding $1.5 million, and Wham Cloud is contributing an additional $1.5 million to the ongoing release of Lustre as open source. The next set of costs, continuing the Lustre roadmap. The currently funded effort we have is with Wham Cloud at $2.3 million. This is for single server metadata performance improvements, distributed namespace, allowing us to scale horizontally across multiple metadata servers, and a Lustre file system checker so that you can reap orphaned objects in a distributed namespace. In addition to this work, Indiana University is currently under contract to develop features to enable security within the Lustre in the wide area. And we've also recently deployed an open test system, or in the process, I should say, of deploying an open test system for Lustre development. Approximately $275,000 for this open platform and operating costs, which will be ongoing. Fortunately, it's going to be co-located at Indiana. They're able to do this at a much lower cost than many organizations, and we appreciate their support here. But these are some of the real costs to keep Lustre moving forward. And then just the community support related costs. Community outreach, websites, wiki, media, engaging with the media, training, documentation, being at community events, sponsoring these events, and in the business related expense such as legal costs, which are non-trivial, much to our chagrin. And these costs can be substantial. But what does it buy us? It buys us a roadmap, right? It buys us not just a maintenance roadmap, but it also buys us a feature roadmap, right? So we not only get a continuation of Lustre as it is today, but a path forward so that we get a scalable, performant, resilient Lustre in the future. And what you'll see on this, yet again another eye chart, is that many of the features developed and going into Lustre in the future are initiated by OpenSFS. OpenSFS helps organize all of these different feature developments, whether they come from OpenSFS, CEA, Lawrence Livermore, Oak Ridge, WAM Cloud, or Zyratex. We're the facilitators for this to make sure that these come in and are agreed upon by the entire community. We also fund that critically important maintenance release every quarter through a contract with WAM Cloud, which WAM Cloud covers half of that cost as well. Here's a snapshot of some of the features that are currently being developed, either directly funded by OpenSFS or by others in the community that we're helping coordinate. Wide striping, allowing us to scale the performance of Lustre over a much larger number of OSTs. Imperative recovery to improve resilience. Stat ahead so that you can improve the performance of interactive users doing ls-l, for example. Parallel directory operations, SMP affinity, and an online file system checker, as well as DNE remote directories, all related to improving the performance of metadata within the Lustre file system. Direct support for HSM so that we can easily migrate data from Lustre to a back-end hierarchical storage system. This is work underway at CEA. And then moving to a next-generation back-end store for Lustre, enabling things like ZFS, ButterFS. This is work being funded by Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories and is also being coordinated with OpenSFS. And if you want more details, here are the main features that are being core funded out of OpenSFS for the Lustre file system. So what are we doing next, right? We've, I think, made some pretty good progress over the last 2 years, particularly over the last 12 months. But the next steps are to finalize requirements within the technical working group for the next phase of development. We have published our requirements document that's available. If you're interested in getting access to that, go to the OpenSFS website and join the technical working group mailing list, and you'll be able to access that document. The technical working group is now prioritizing those items, and then they'll present that to the technical working group members for agreement, and then we'll look at funding some of those features to actually address some of those requirements in the future, essentially carrying on this roadmap development not only today but into the future. We're also very much interested in determining a path forward for a vendor-neutral tree. Right now we have gotten part of the way there. We're funding much of the open development within the tree, the infrastructure required to keep the tree ongoing, and the point releases that you all depend on. But we want to get to a model where we can actually share that repository and no one organization has control. And we're also looking at defining and developing a community benchmark suite. This is critically important for users to be involved in. We want vendors involved as well, but we believe that the users should be defining what their workloads are and helping articulate what the benchmarks are that represent their workloads so they're of maximum value to you. So this is an area where we've recently started efforts, and I'd encourage you to get engaged. But what's missing from OpenSFS? Well, you are. And it was clear from when I asked for a raise of hands, there's at least 50% of the group here that are not in the OpenSFS organization. We have 3 levels of membership, starting at $5,000 per year, so the buy-in is not very high. What do you get for that? You get direct access to all the activities happening within OpenSFS. You can work directly within the technical working group. We allow all members and non-members alike to do that, but you also get to vote in terms of prioritization, for example, of requirements and feature development in the future. You also add to our voice. So what does OpenSFS do for you? I hope I've convinced you that we fund the lion's share of the Lustre roadmap, without which Lustre would atrophy. We fund half of the Lustre tree support, ensuring a free and open Lustre tree, and we provide a collaborative environment for ensuring the continued success of the Lustre file system. We also manage and host major community events in collaboration with EOFS, such as the LUG you're at today. So why should you join? Well, your dues help contribute to the continued success of Lustre, and participation in OpenSFS puts you in the driver's seat for Lustre features and the Lustre roadmap. And probably most importantly, the critical mass that it gives our organization so that we can propel Lustre forward, so we have a large voice within the ecosystem, is critical. So I'd encourage you to consider joining. You can talk to Norm, you can talk to Shay Seeger, who is the secretary of OpenSFS, or any one of the members of OpenSFS as to some of the benefits. So if you feel like you've been in a fundraising drive, you have been, but I promise you that unlike public radio, we won't interrupt every 5 minutes with another drive. So thanks for tolerating this, but we really do need you at the table. We're doing quite a bit of interesting work. We're really taking Lustre to a level that it's never been before. A level of stability, performance, and scalability that will ensure that our requirements are met today and in the future. So thank you all for your time.
So we're a couple of minutes ahead of schedule, so if I may, I'd like to make a few additional introductions. First, I apologize for not introducing myself. I'm Norman Morse. I'm President and CEO of Open Scalable File Systems. I'm also treasurer, chief cook, and bottle washer. So my job is, I spend 90% of my time doing exactly what the OpenSFS board tells me to do. And I spend the other 10% of my time wishing that I had. So that's my job. If I may, I'd like to introduce the members of the OpenSFS board, many of whom are here. So Steve Sims, you've met, and you'll hear more from him. You've met Galen. Terry Quinn from Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory wasn't able to join us today. I'd like to introduce David Wallace. Dave, are you here? Could you stand? Oh, yeah. Okay. Dave Wallace is a member of our board. John Josephakis. Okay, John's in the back there. Also, Shay Seeger, who's in the back, the other employee of Open Scalable File Systems. Did I get everyone? Oh, Kevin Kennedy. Sorry, from Xyrotex. Yes, Kevin. Thank you. So, all right. So if you have any complaints about anything around Lustre or Open Scalable File System, please see those people. If you have
talk to Sims.
Yeah, exactly, Sims. If you have praise and admiration, please come see me. So, okay, so Steve, do you want to give the ground rules for the talks at this point?
So first, to kind of respond to what Galen said, one of my roles is the community member of the OpenSFS board. So you're the community. If there are things that you'd like to be represented to the board, you can pester me. I love it. I'm the program chair, so first I'd like to thank all of you for submitting abstracts. We had a whole pile of abstracts this year. Groovy. It made our jobs difficult, and it made the time slots for speakers small. Which brings me to my next point. We're going to try to be as ruthless as we can about time. Steve Monk here from Sandia, he's going to be my ruthless timekeeper. So, as you're speaking, keep an eye out for him. Let's see. Something else. Right. We're going to have 2 microphones in the audience, so if you have questions, raise your hands. When I walk off here, we're going to have a break, but if Sarp Oral and Orléans Degremont would come and see Steve and I up here, I sure would appreciate it. Questions, comments, problems? That's the plan. You know, some of the folks out there that are giving presentations actually sent me their slides. That was the other thing. Those of you that haven't sent me your slides, you are in trouble. Particularly the corporate folks that are going to be giving vendor talks at 5. Hey man, I asked for them on April 9th. I think I don't even have one of the vendor talks for 5 o'clock today. So if you would like slides for your talks, please pester me and we'll make sure that happens. Anything else?
Videos will be on Inside HPC.
Right on. Rich Bruckner, ladies and gentlemen. Videos of the talks will be on InsideHPC.com.
And the presentations will be on the OpenSFS website.
Okay, so to answer your question with regards to presentations, we're going to have them up on the OpenSFS website as soon as we can wangle. Anything else?
You might want to tell them about lunch and dinner tonight. Certain members there's going to be dinner.
Oh, that's good. So there's food. Lunch is at noon. Dinner is at what, 6:30?
Yeah.
You know, I'm flying. Too much caffeine.
And it won't be just typical, you know, hotel food. It should be pretty decent grub. So please do join us.
We've taken it to the mat. You know, no expense spared for you, as you can tell by how much you paid to be here. Anyway, man, so cool to see all of you. So glad that this is the biggest LUG ever. Again, if you have questions, comments, problems, program-wise or, you know, OpenSFS board-wise, kick me. I've got the sign on my back. Anyway, rock on.